Well, the holidays are over, but the cold weather continues to just be more than we can really handle. Wow, it's really been cold. I was listening to the TV this morning telling about another cold wave that's coming through the East Coast. And I thought, how much of this can we take? But we'll take as much as we need. Nothing much you can do about it. I want to talk to you today about fear. Fear is a very real thing. And you can be fearful and be just tormented and tell it's terrible. And that's what I want to talk about today. The Bible tells us a story called a fellow called Daniel. Daniel was told that he could not pray to his God anymore. There was a no law in the country of Babylon, and the god that they had built, a statue they had built for King Nebuchadnezzar. Well, Daniel was not at all interested in that, nor was he going to be obedient to that. And so, when the enemy was there watching him, because they knew what he would do. They knew he would not give in. They knew he would serve God to respond like he always had. He would not succumb to their demands. Sure enough, the whistle blew or the horn blew, however they did it. And everyone was supposed to bow down and worship that image. And Daniel didn't. Daniel held his ground. And they were the enemies that were so jealous of him, they couldn't handle it. They want, how in the world are we going to do? We've tried everything we know to do to try to find out how and what he does that we can report. But there's nothing that he's guilty of. So we can't go for that. So what are we going to do? The only thing I know to do, said one of them, is to attack his religion. What are you going to do about that? He won't give in to that. We'll have to do that and attack what he does and what he believes. So that's what they did. And when that horn blew and everybody bowed down to worship that idol, Daniel didn't. Daniel wouldn't. He would worship no other than the God he had always served. And they watched his enemies, that is, to see what he would do. And he did exactly what they knew he would. He worshiped the Lord. That's the only one he would worship. And so they reported him to the king and said, this fellow, Daniel, he doesn't pay a bit of attention to anything you command or anything you say to do. He is continually worshiping his God. He will not worship the statue that you have built. What are you going to do about that? Well, the king knew that he was nothing he could do about that. He had signed the document. You had to I'll be obedient to everything they said to do. And so they arrested Daniel and took him, and he put him in a pit, a lion's pit. He was going to be thrown to the lions because he didn't obey the king's command. Wow. I want to put that with the story. Many years ago, when I first went to Haiti, my husband and I went to Port-au-Prince, got a motel, which wasn't much, but it was what they had. And in the night, Pete had a heart attack. Only I didn't know what it was. I'm not a nurse. I didn't know what the symptoms were. But he complained, Pat, a horse has hit me. He kicked me in my chest. Well, he had had a heart attack, what he'd had. So it just happened that we waited until the people that had brought us there, the woman was a nurse, Mary, and Mary came with her husband, and they looked at Pete, and they said, we got to get him to a doctor, to a hospital, right away. So they did. The doctor looked at him. He said, we'll have to send him to the hospital. He's had a massive heart attack. Now, the only hospital that I knew about there was what they called a canopy vert, meaning green canopy. And they took him to that hospital, and the rooms were very small. One bed, just a twin size. And they put him in that bed, and nobody could be in that room with him except one monitor with a portable case, a thing that they used for a monitor. And I had to stay outside. I couldn't go into the room. Well, I was scared to death. Nightfall came, and there was nothing you could do. Pete was dying in that room, and it was for sure he was dying. And there I was. I couldn't speak the language. Only thing they spoke at that time was French. I couldn't speak French. It was dark, and in the distance, you could hear the sound of drums. I don't know what was going on. I can't interpret it, but it was some kind of a festival or some kind of a worship thing, and they used drums. So here we were, no electricity in this place. They were just drum sounds and the pitch blackness of a dark night, and I was frightened to death. Well, I thought of all the people that told me not to do that. Don't you be a missionary. Don't you go to Haiti. My family especially. Nobody liked the idea. But I knew that God had called me. I had to be obedient. So during the night, I cried to God. Oh, did I cry? Frightened to death. Pete was dying. I thought, I won't make it either. I could hear the sound of those drums. They were having some kind of a festival, I guess, or something, worship service of some description in the distance. I could hear it. And there was nobody I could talk to because nobody spoke English. There I was, frightened to death. And I cried to God. Did I ever cry to God? And I heard the Lord's Spirit in my spirit. Will not the God you serve continually deliver thee? And I knew that was a verse from the book of Daniel in the Old Testament, when King Nebuchadnezzar came to talk to Daniel. And he hollered, Daniel, Daniel. He came in the morning after the lions had been put, like Sigum to him. And he was supposed to have been chewed up and killed. And he came in the morning, and he couldn't sleep all night. I'm talking about the king now. He couldn't sleep, scared to death. What had happened to his good friend, Daniel? And he hollered, Daniel, Daniel, Daniel. Are you hearing me? Daniel, Daniel, does the God you serve continually, did he deliver thee? And Daniel said, O king, yes, God has been faithful to me again. I'm here. He has shut the lions' mouths. I'm here, and nothing has happened. And nothing did happen. We were saved through that ordeal. And when the end of the time came, Pete was in that hospital for a month. He walked out. He didn't go out in an ambulance. He walked out to the car. The Lord that we served continually, delivered him, and he was free. Now, I'm telling you all this because a lot of you are afraid of what's going to happen to America, afraid of what's going to happen. We hear what the threats are from North Korea. We hear what they say they're going to do. But you know, the God America has served, the God that gave us America, the God that we trust, that God has promised He will deliver us, and He will deliver us. The God of all the earth does right, and that God is faithful, and that God will keep us. Sometimes it looks impossible, but when you know that God can't fail, you can rest in the confidence that He never lies. He don't know how to lie. Lying is not a part of His nature. The God we serve continually, He does deliver. Amen.